want to thank you all for being here as we talk about fairness and delivering on our nation's promises. My name is Abigail Spanberger, and I am the proud representative for Virginia's 7th District. I'm also a proud former federal employee. And I want to thank Congressman Rodney Davis for his leadership on this effort. He has worked tirelessly to make sure that America's police officers, firefighters, teachers, and public employees receive the retirement security they deserve and have earned. And I am proud to work with you on this effort. Rodney welcomed me to this effort when I joined Congress in 2019, but he has been a leader on this issue since he first arrived in Congress back in 2013. I also want to thank the National Fraternal Order of Police, the National Active and Retired Federal Employees, California Retired Teachers Association, AFSCME, the Senior Citizens League, National Education Association, and American Federation of Teachers for being here today. This is a strong coalition supporting this legislation. Thank you for joining our call to action, not just talk. The windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset, also known as the WEP and GPO, are reducing the Social Security benefits of more than 2 million Americans who earned these benefits through years of hard work. I stand here today as a representative of Virginians, thousands of whom are negatively impacted by current rules. In 2020, the WEP reduced benefits for nearly 50,000 Virginians. And that same year, the GPO reduced benefits for nearly 8,000 Virginians. These Virginians do not deserve to see their Social Security reduced just because they spent their careers in public service, particularly during this time marked by uncertainty, challenges, and high prices across the board. These are hardworking Americans who care about serving others, not themselves. They're police officers, they're firefighters, they're the men and women who teach our children in the classroom, and they are dedicated federal employees. They are law enforcement who work to keep our communities and our nation safe. It has been said before, but I'll say it again today, no American should be penalized because of their public service. These public servants have been waiting decades for a solution to this issue, and now we are so close towards rectifying this problem. At this moment, there is bipartisan momentum for eliminating the WEP and the GPO through the Social Security Fairness Act. In fact, we have more than enough co-sponsors to guarantee this legislation would pass on the House floor. And we have more than enough co-sponsors to force a vote on the floor by placing this bill on the consensus calendar. That threshold is 290 co-sponsors, and we have surpassed that number. America's public servants deserve this vote. House leadership could bring it up for a vote as soon as we get back from our work period. And House leadership could finally listen to the voices here today, which represent millions of Americans who are looking for just a little bit of peace of mind. Politicians like to talk a lot about the importance of public service, but this legislation is an opportunity to show that we actually mean it, that we recognize the sacrifices and commitments that come with serving our communities, our states, and our country, and we are urging leadership to hear the voices of these public servants. Enough of the delay tactics and enough of the excuses. We have to bring our bipartisan Social Security Fairness Act to the floor. And it is now my absolute pleasure to introduce my Republican colleague and partner on this effort, Rodney Davis of Illinois.
Give Abigail a round of applause. She's a bulldog. Hey, look, this is a great day. And as somebody who learned long ago about the punitive effects of these two provisions that were put into Social Security long before any of us got to Washington, D.C. to serve, today is a great day. Today, as Abigail said, is the day that we've moved this process further along to fix these punitive provisions than ever before in our nation's history. And as Abigail said, leadership in the House can take an historic vote and live up to the bipartisan promises that have been made through many different Congresses, Republican and Democrat, over the last few decades to fix these egregious provisions. Now, if anyone out there is thinking what we're trying to do is give public employees, give our retired police officers, our retired firefighters, our retired teachers, and their spouses, to give them something that other Americans aren't already getting, you would be wrong to assume that. These provisions were put in place and they became punitive against the families who have served the American people throughout their entire career. These provisions have had overwhelming bipartisan support to fix. And we've heard promises made from Republican speakers, from Democratic speakers, since the Carter and Reagan administration, yeah, we're going to do something about it. Well, you know what? Here's your shot. But this would not be a day that we could stand here to celebrate the progress without the folks that I get a chance to serve with. Abigail Spanberger has been a leader on this issue since I met her. She's somebody who's tenacious, and I saw that yesterday. We had a little hiccup. Don't know if you're aware of it. But coming together in a bipartisan way is going to lead to a result that hiccup is going to be fixed today. We can have a vote, as Abby said, as soon as September, to show the American people where every Republican and every Democrat stands on fixing these egregious provisions. And I also want to thank my colleagues who have helped throughout that, not just the hiccup process, but have led the way to ensure that we are on the consensus calendar. Garrett Graves. Garrett is one of the funniest humans I've ever met in my life. We give each other so much crap every day. But there is nobody who has been a better partner on my side of the aisle than Garrett Graves to make sure we got here. And we're joined today by our colleague also from the great state of Louisiana, Julia Letlow, who's one of our newer members, but recognize that these are provisions that need to be fixed. And yesterday, we saw real leadership out of the two leaders of the problem solvers, Brian Fitzpatrick, Josh Gottheimer. Thank you to both of them for energizing their caucus to help us get the hiccup yesterday corrected. And I think in congressional time, that's pretty much record time, right? I mean, less than 24 hours. But we also have to thank the groups who sent out alerts. And I know I probably won't get all of them, but I do know the FOP, NARF, California Retired Teachers, and many others. They saw what needed to be done, and they got their members to act. And don't think for a second that pressure didn't have anything to do with that immediate fix, because it did. It's been a great team. And this teamwork started long before I got to Congress when I first found out about these provisions. One of my former teachers, a government teacher, a history teacher, sociology teacher, economics, and Abigail will tell you he must have screwed up because she thinks I'm wrong on some of these issues. But you know what? Bob Stevenson from Taylorville, Illinois, Taylorville High School. This is somebody who has asked me to lead on fixing this issue, which is why I started doing it as soon as I got here. And today is a great day, and I certainly wish I wouldn't have talked as long because unfortunately Garrett Graves is walking up. You missed all the nice things I said about you, man. I don't believe that. But it's people like Bob Stevenson who are representative of why these egregious provisions need to be fixed. Because they don't care if you're a Republican, they don't care if you're a Democrat. They just know that if they've met the same metrics as every other American family, but something happens to them and their spouse is punished because of the GPO and the WEP, it's wrong. America is going to be served better when our public servants get what they deserve. And today, again, thank you, Abby. Thank you to the FOP. Thank you to NARF, the California Retired Teachers, and so many more, and all of my colleagues, even Garrett Graves, for your leadership on this issue. And I just cannot wait to get this rule fixed and come back in September. And if we have to bulldog and fix a few more hiccups, I know all of you behind me are going to be right with me. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Clyde Boatwright, President of the Maryland State Lodge of the National Fraternal Order of Police. He's going to share how the Social Security Fairness Act would benefit police officers and retirees in his state and across the country.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm Clyde Boatwright, President of the Maryland State Fraternal Order of Police, and I'm here at the request of our national president, Patrick Yost, who couldn't be here today as he's in New Mexico attending a funeral. I wish he were here today because nobody in the FOP has worked harder than him to get this bill where it is today. The FOP has been working to repeal WEP and GPO for over 20 years. As we all know, WEP and GPO has created a real inequity for many public employees, particularly law enforcement officers who usually retire earlier than other governmental employees and often begin second careers, which require them to pay into the Social Security system. Law enforcement officers face as much as a 60% cut to their Social Security benefits. This is an issue of fairness. Fairness to the public employees who have served their communities. When these public employees earn Social Security benefits through their work, they should receive the benefit in full without being penalized because of their public service. I personally know many friends and colleagues who are affected by these provisions. Over the past couple of years, it's been amazing to see this issue finally get the attention that it deserves. I want to thank Representatives Rodney Davis and Abigail Spanberger, who have worked tirelessly to advance the cause of the Social Security fairness for our public employees. On behalf of all FOP members, please know how grateful we are for your work. Now, the rule change in the House yesterday was deeply disappointing, but I'm heartened by what Representatives Davis and Spanberger have told us about their conversations with House leadership, and the FOP will work with Representatives Davis, Spanberger, and House leadership team to make sure that our Social Security Fairness Bill is treated fairly. I will add this. Our members will remain engaged. We're going to not let up off the gas pedal. We're going to keep calling our representatives and encouraging them to sign on if they haven't already. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Boatwright, and thank you to the FOP for their tremendous and continued support and rallying around this legislation. It's how we were able to get so many co-sponsors. It is now my pleasure to invite Ken Thomas, President of the National Active and Retired Federal Employees, to speak about how the Social Security Fairness Act would deliver results. And Mr. Thomas, I also want to note that, in fact, it was at a meeting with the National Active and Retired Federal Employees that this issue, many years before I got to Congress, first was brought to my attention. So thank you to you for being here and to your members for their advocacy all along the way. It's how we were able to get so many co-sponsors and get to this day.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Washington, and I'm sweating. If the congressman, congresswoman behind me are not, then they're not up to the, you might say, the weather here. I'd like to thank them for their, you might say, their attempt to get this thing through. We've been working on this for more than 35 years, and now it comes time to really get those votes in. We've got 290 plus co-sponsors of this legislation, and we're trying to repeal the evil twins of the Social Security Administration. And that's what we're trying to do now. The thing about it is, it's one of those pieces of legislation that, if repealed, will enable at least 2 million people that are affected by this to then get what they justly deserve. Some of us, oddly enough, worked for the federal government. Some of us worked for state and local areas. From that, we received some kind of a pension, and that pension meant something to us back then. In addition, when we retired, we also went and worked for other entities. And sometimes you have police officers who had the beat and then moved on afterwards to sit in a building and protect that building. but that they paid into Social Security. So when it comes time to get their annuity and then get their Social Security, they find out they moved the goalpost. And when they move the goalpost, it means that they're getting dinged at least $500 a month in benefits. Sometimes they're not getting anything at all. So this is a piece of legislation that needs to get pushed through Congress. Right now, we've got 290 plus members who are saying this is the time. Before this, it sat many times in the committee and never got out. Now's the time to get it done. So 290 plus members say now's the time. I want to thank all of you for coming today. I want to thank the members, all of the members who have worked on this bill, and hopefully we're going to get this thing through. This is one of those things that we must get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Susie Dixon, President-elect of the California Retired Teachers Association. Yes, you heard that right, California. And she has the distinction of coming the furthest distance to be a part of this press conference because this issue impacts people, impacts public and community servants across the country. And so, Ms. Dixon, thank you for being with us. Thank you for traveling not just from California, but as I understand it, you arrived early to make sure that no weather disruptions, no airplane disruptions could stand in the way of her ability to talk on behalf of the people she represents about why this is so important.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. CalRTA, or also known as the California Retired Teachers Association, has also been fighting these unjust penalties for well over 30 years. It was one of those legislative bills that passed that immediately within 2 years, our legislative advocate recognized that it had some severe problems for our teachers and for our public social workers. In California, many public service workers, police, fire, community workers are affected by the windfall elimination provision. All of our California retired teachers are affected by the government pension offset. At this time, we have over 375,000 California retired teachers affected by the GPO, and that number is growing. We're in the baby boomer era where retirees are becoming more prevalent each year. One of the things we've been most proud of is the repeal effort by Congressman Rodney Davis. We have always been a strong supporter of his repeal bills, and we have worked tirelessly to get H.R. 82 to the over 290 co-sponsors. As President-elect and Government Relations Chair, I was able to use the technology to contact all of the out-of-state representatives, whereas in the past, you were only able to get on their website. I found out their legislative directors, and we've been doing Ledge Alerts for over 6 years, and we are proud to say that this time, Congressman has over the 290 co-sponsors needed. The time is now for leadership to bring this to the floor. We did our job. We received and got those 290 plus co-sponsors. Now leadership needs to do their job, bring this bill to the floor so Congress can do their job to get these bills repealed. As Congressman Davis said, we're not asking for anything that others don't get. These are our earned benefits. If you paid into Social Security, the windfall elimination provision can take up to 60% of your earned benefit each month. I'm personally affected by both when I start collecting Social Security. The government pension offset is the most punitive, mostly women, because mostly women work in the teaching profession. Today, and therefore going forward, many of our second career teachers will not join public schools in California and other states because they hear about the WEP and the GPO, and they do not want to have those penalties, those earned benefits affected. One of the things I researched a couple years ago was on the Social Security website, and I quote, this is why they do the GPO. Why we reduce the benefits of the GPO. Congress intended for Social Security spousal benefits to support non-working spouses. Because many spouses have their own careers and are not financially dependent on their spouse, the law requires us to reduce their spousal benefit or eliminate fully. This is 2022. This is appalling. Two incomes in the United States have been around for well over 30 years. I'm not sure how many people who are teachers think that their income is independent of their spouses. Then they lose all of their spousal benefits because of this outdated bill. As government relations chair, I've read hundreds of sad stories of our members who have had to give up their home, move in with family, go on government assistance, which I'm sure costs more than giving those earned benefits that they deserve. The time is now. We're hoping that our leadership acts. I've been fortunate to work with a national group where many of you have been a part of. That is why we're working together as public service people, and we need our leadership to take it forward so Congress can do their job. Again, thank you for coming, and thank you both for having me.
When Ms. Dixon said we did our job, not only did they rally to get more than 290 co-sponsors agitating and drawing attention to this issue to representatives across the country, but the job that they did was they taught our kids, they kept our community safe, they served our country through federal service, and now it is our job to ensure that they're not penalized because they chose a career of service. It is now my honor to introduce Congressman Garrett Graves of Louisiana. I also want to again just thank Congresswoman Letlow from Louisiana for being here. But Garrett, we turn it over to you to talk about why this is important
Thank
to
you.
the people of Louisiana and everyone else.
Thanks, Abby. I want to get two important things out of the way first. Number one, for years in Congress, Rodney Davis has served, and people have asked, what is he good at? And nobody's been able to answer that question until today. And of course, I'm talking about his amazing performance at the baseball game last night. So. Number two, could you please remind me where the president of the Fraternal Order of Police is from?
He's from Louisiana.
That's right. Thank you. All right. Now, I want to seriously. I want to talk about this. So let me just distill this down. If you were a security guard for 15 years and then you went on to be a police officer for 10 years, your Social Security benefits would be cut. If you were a teacher in the public schools for 15 years, then went to go work for 10 years in the private schools, your Social Security benefits would be cut. This just doesn't make sense as compared to if you had stayed as a security guard, if you had stayed as a private school teacher the whole time. These are some of the most honorable professions in the United States and the world. I'm married to an educator. I want to be clear, she would not benefit from this, but I'm married to an educator. And it's such an important profession to ensure that the next generation can have the same opportunities, can reach their maximum potential. Why in the world would we be penalizing or disincentivizing people from going into these professions? We've seen an uptick in crime. We need to be incentivizing people to go in law enforcement. We need to be incentivizing people to go and be firefighters, to go into public service. These are honorable professions. And as a result of this 40-year-old ill-advised provision, government pension offset and windfall elimination, we're penalizing people from going into public service, penalizing people from going into law enforcement, penalizing people for helping our kids, this next generation, to maximize and reach their full potential. This is wrong. It's unjust. And look, very seriously, I've got to give huge accolades to Congressman Rodney Davis, to Abby for their work, for the teachers, for the public servants, for the Fraternal Order of Police, and the entire network of people that have been out there educating people on this. This is such a critical issue. And look, y'all all have seen how dysfunctional Congress has been, the fighting. I mean, we can't even agree on naming a post office here. But here you have a bill that has over 300 Republican and Democrat co-sponsors from across the United States. This is a remarkable unity of effort. This is a remarkable time when Congress is coming together, all pushing in the same direction. We're not fighting against one another, we're fighting for something. And that's simply ensuring fairness. And so this is a great time. It's a remarkable effort that has all culminated with nearly 300 Republican and Democrat co-sponsors from across America. We've got to get this bill across the finish line, and I look forward to the day when we can stand side by side with these people, with the President of the United States, signing this bill into law and fixing this unjust law that's been in place penalizing public servants, people that are overworked and underpaid now for over 40 years.
Thank you very much. This concludes the portion where we all make remarks, and now we open it up to questions. So all of the folks who've spoken here today are available to answer questions. Anyone care to start us off?
Why not? I just wanted to see if you guys had, I mean, obviously you have a ton of sponsors on this enough to pass. You're hoping to get it in September. Have you had any discussions with leadership where they've said, yes, they will bring it to the floor, or any sense on timing in September?
So we've been pushing aggressively about ensuring that we are prepared to go on the consensus calendar. For those of you who may not be up on all of the ins and outs of rules, there's a rule that if a bill has more than 290 co-sponsors, it can be moved to the consensus calendar. There was a bit of, I think Congressman Davis termed it, a bit of a hiccup yesterday when it looked like we might have been eclipsed because of some rulemaking processes. We got that fixed. And so now the process for moving forward is we can bring this bill forward on the consensus calendar, which means we expect it to move easily through the House of Representatives because more than 290 people have been willing to say, I support this bill so much I co-sponsor it, therefore I will vote for it, and move it on. But we do not have a guarantee of dates, but we are pushing hard for September because frankly, after decades, what are we waiting for?
You know, I will tell you, as somebody who witnessed the tenacity of my good friend and colleague, Abigail, just yesterday on the floor, it is a bipartisan, massive effort to be able to get leadership to call this bill for a vote. The American people have been promised for decades, we need to know where every member of Congress stands. And when you have this much consensus now, that's what the consensus calendar was actually created for, right? It's not rocket science. We're not trying to send somebody to Mars. We're trying to actually fix something that's been broken. And again, I witnessed how hard Democrats like Abigail Spanberger, Josh Gottheimer were working on the floor yesterday with their leadership team, not only fixing the hiccup, but once that hiccup was fixed in a bipartisan way yesterday, you know what? It began the discussion of, so when are you going to put it up? And we're not going to stop. August, they call it a break around here. And I got a feeling the group standing behind me and all of my colleagues standing behind me are going to be very busy this August making sure leadership knows exactly how everybody here feels about getting a vote as quickly in September as we can.
It's projected that Social Security is going to exhaust all of its tax reserves by 2035. How is this legislation going to, is there a way that this can be paid for if more money is going to be coming out of the Social Security Trust Fund?
Look, I will tell you, as somebody who has run for office for 10 years in a district that was very highly competitive, Social Security and the solvency of Social Security, even Medicare, is a major issue. We have too many people here in Washington, D.C. that talk about fixing things but stick their head in the sand when it comes to addressing the issue at hand. I used to say early on in my career that Social Security is okay till 2036. You just said 2035. We've got to do something. And let me tell you the benefit of this. Will it cost? Absolutely, it's going to cost when you score this on a spreadsheet. But what has been the cost to those families who have not been given the same benefits that every other family who did not choose public service have gotten over the same 4 decades? There's a cost, but this can also be a benefit. We can begin talking about what can we do to ensure the long-term solvency of Social Security. We can have that debate that no one in both parties has been willing to have. Because why? They're scared. I have never lost an election talking about the need to address the solvency of Social Security and calling out those who have said that we don't need to do anything, we'll deal with it in 2035. It's wrong. We should prepare better. We should do more. And this could be that moment when we have a debate on this bill, we can begin talking about other solutions too.
Look, one other thing that I think is really important here. Look, Rodney's right, Abby's right. We have got to make sure that the solvency of the trust fund is good for decades to come, for generations to come. But something that's really important to keep in mind here, all we're asking for is for people to get what they're due. These people paid into the Social Security Trust Fund. This makes it a little bit different situation. Two other things. Last February, this Congress passed $84 billion to bail out private pensions that were mismanaged, and just this week, $256,000 per pensioner coming out of the general fund to go toward a private pension fund that was mismanaged. These are private funds in this case. We can do this, and in fact, I think we have to do this. Last thing is that the rule that we're debating right now, I think it's Section 7 of it, actually fixes the issue that was that stopped the clock yesterday. And so, you know, in regard, Emily, to your question, if leadership was not going to do this, I mean, it seems like they wouldn't have fixed the rule, so they're putting pressure on themselves to do it. And I know as a result of the great work of these folks that this is a very serious discussion among leadership, and we're looking forward to that September vote.
Thanks, everyone.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you again for being here, and certainly thank you to all of the organizations and the people who have put work on this. Thank you for helping us get more than 290 co-sponsors. And most importantly, thank you for the service of your members, their work across our communities. That's why we're here today, and that's why we're so committed to this issue. Thank you.